Sancarn.
Hey guys, it's me Sancarn,
And me, Selulance.
and we're the creators of the Sand Generator. As you may be aware, the duplication glitch does not simply work by dropping sand through an end portal. There are very special ways to replicate the sand duplication. In this video we will explain how this and our design works in full detail.
We're going to divide this video into sections in order to make it easier to understand how the whole machine fits together. From the basic components to the complex machines.
Below we have a list of shortcuts, which will take you to different parts of the video. Just go ahead and click on them if you wish to skip to that part. However, if you are interested in all the topics listed below, you don't have to do anything and the video will start shortly.
When a falling sand entity collides with a hitbox of the end portal, it is transported to the end.
When you push a falling sand entity with a piston, the falling sand will be slightly offset to the direction it was pushed in. When the edge of the falling sand entity collides with a collidable block, it will break into a sand item entity.
A YouTuber named Ground15 discovered that when we combine these two techniques, we can duplicate sand. We can do this because the falling sand entity breaks and turns into an item in the same tick that it is deleted and replaced in the end. Note, this only occurs when the chunk the platform is in is loaded.
As soon as an entity enters the portal from the overworld, the platform in the end will refresh. This means the 3x5x5 area above the platform will be replaced with air, and the platform itself will be replaced with obsidian. This all happens just before the entity itself is spawned in the end. The game does this such that the player will never have an end portal that leads to death. That is, by suffocation or falling into the void.
In order to make a lossless sand generator, we need to get the sand block created by the falling sand entity off the platform. Otherwise, when the platform refreshes, this sand block will be deleted.
So the first thing that we need to do is we actually need to get this sand item entity off the platform here. The way we do this is we use a minecart system, so let's just quickly switch it on. This is in fact the simplest part of the whole design. When a minecart sits on top of a rail, it will suck items sitting on the block directly above it. By moving the minecart back and forth, we can reduce the number of hopper minecarts necessary. From our testing, it seemed like the sand always flew in one of two directions, so it might be possible to optimize this system further.
So, in order to avoid clocks, we needed a way to detect when the platform has refreshed. And the easiest way we could think of was to use the fact that the platform deletes a 3x5x5 area above the platform. For this we needed an infinite supply of blocks, and where better to get that than from a cobblestone generator. If we strongly power the top corner of the 3x5x5 area with a repeater, when the cobblestone is deleted by the platform refresh, the output turns off instantly. Thus, we are detecting the platform refreshing instantly. The cobblestone blocks created by this sensor shall be called sensor blocks for the rest of this video. In order to keep it as fast as possible, an instant falling edge monostable circuit was used. During the same tick the sensor block is broken, we can create a 2-tick pulse instantly with this setup. We used this to start off the quad cobblestone extender setup.
In one of Test137E29's videos, he shows this fast, yet stable double piston extender design. This glitch has been known for a long time, however this version is extremely stable and isn't position or direction dependent. By placing redstone on this yellow wall block here, we can make the design instant on the rising edge, as well as making the design compatible with the 2-tick instant falling edge you have just seen.
By combining these three concepts, we can create a super fast way of pushing the sand off the end platform. Here's an example of the system in action with a simple command block reset.
One problem remained. How do we fill the quad extender with cobblestone? We created this design to push a 2x2x1 region of cobblestone into the system from the side. Since the cobblestone generates faster in the end, due to faster lava flow speeds, we only required one cobblestone generator.
To enable us to transport the sand from the end platform to the portal, we require the following designs. The first design is a way to push sand vertically upwards without breaking any of the sand. The second design is a simple smart piston design, which pushes a block instantly as it arrives, and the final design is a smart version of the first design. This means that it will detect the block arrival and 2 ticks later push the sand upwards.
One of the issues that we faced is that the portal to the end is extremely far away from the spawn chunks. This means we'd need to transport the sand from the spawn point through the unloaded chunks to the stronghold portal.
When a falling sand entity is dropped into the portal in the end, it will appear in the overworld in a fixed location. And we do not believe this location can be changed in vanilla Minecraft. So what we have here is a bot-powered smart piston, which will instantly push the sand as soon as it spawns in the overworld. From previous testing, it is unwise to leave redstone, torches or partial blocks around this spawn location, else the sand might break. This is why we use a bud to detect the sand entering the overworld.
We will be moving the sand through unloaded chunks. This means that we are going to have to use redstone circuitry that can be used in these unloaded chunks. So the first thing we need to know is what works in unloaded chunks and what doesn't. Repeater updates, comparator updates, and torch inversions do not work in unloaded chunks. However, piston extensions, redstone updates, quasi-conductivity, and piston updates all work in unloaded chunks. Also, it has to be noted that block conductivity still applies, such that a block on top of a torch will still provide a signal.
This is a version of Instant Wire which use piston inverters, allowing it to work in unloaded chunks, contrary to the torch version of Instant Wire. These instant wire lines create a pulse and are used for instant sand transportation and chunk loading.
So this is the instant sand conveyor belt that we use to send the sand from the overworld spawn point all the way to the end portal in the stronghold through all the unloaded chunks. So what we have here is we have the bud switch that we saw at the beginning of this section, and that then goes on to this instant wire line, and then we're going to get Selulance to talk about the mechanics of the instant wire pushing, instant sand conveyor.
Indeed, so basically, as soon as a sand arrives, it'll instantly go into this first slot, and the bud will also trigger the instant wire through this torch. It needs to be normally powered, and then that'll start all of these side pushing pistons at the same time because it's instant wire. And so basically that happens, and it'll push the sand into a smart piston, so the smart pistons will push them forward, and basically that's all what happens. So an important thing to know is that all the corners needs to be smart pistons, and the pistons pushing forward needs to be smart pistons for this to work. And yeah, anything else to mention?
Yeah, so there's a couple of things that you might spot in this design and you might go, "Ooh, what the hell?" Like, for example, this over here. When this piston retracts, some of you redstones might think, "Oh my god, this will create a one-tick redstone clock and the torch will burn out and then everything bad will happen and then the world will explode." But in fact, that does not work. That does not happen because we have to remember that this is in unloaded chunks. So what will actually happen is the torch itself will never turn off because that's what happens in unloaded chunks. Torches don't depower. They don't invert. So in fact, this whole torch on top of the block thing and this redstone will just essentially do what we think it would do, and just just powers this redstone here. And this was great because it made this super compact, and we didn't have to have any blocks coming out to the side and stuff. Or the only other way of doing it would be a redstone block here. Is that right?
Right, but that would be much more expensive, and if you ever would want this legit, it would be crazy, because this is probably 1,500 or something long.
Yeah, exactly.
And yes, and you might wonder why we use these slabs in just these places, and that is because there's a bug in Minecraft right now that, depending on where you power redstone, pistons can bud without any apparent reason, even though the redstone is on top here. So that still happens. Oh, storm. Yeah, so that is the reason why we have slabs. And the reason for this yellow part is, in our previous testing, we had to update this first smart piston for it to update all the other smart pistons, because when the instant wire fires, it will actually block all the smart pistons. But it might not be required. We need to do some more testing about that. I mean, it is not required. It's not required, but it might be needed to.
Yeah, it might be a directional bug, or a positional bug. So yeah, that's why we put this sticky piston here, just in case you need it, basically. Just in case for some reason this piston doesn't actually extend, you can put this little bit in and it'll sort everything out for you.
Yep.
In order for the duplication bug to work correctly, the sand must be able to fall in an entity processing loaded chunk. We can force unloaded chunks to become lazy chunks just by altering the state of a redstone line inside that chunk. To create an entity processing chunk, we need to force a 5x5 region of chunks to become lazy chunks. The center of the 5x5 region of lazy chunks is the entity processing chunk.
In our design, we already use instant wire to power the instant sand conveyor. So we just took the same signal and spread it over a 5x5 region of chunks, and this forced the chunk containing the portal to become an entity processing chunk, allowing us to use the duplication glitch. If you have done something wrong and you have not loaded the chunks correctly, you should see that the sand doesn't actually fall through the portal. The sand will fall and land on top of the portal blocks like this.
We found that the old way of loading chunks using hoppers is now obsolete in 1.7.4 and above. Thus, the only other way of having an entity processing chunk would be to have another player standing in that area. Right guys, so the next thing that we're going to talk about is a new concept, and this is called cycle, and a cycle time. Now, currently the piston design here is on one cycle, and you can kind of see this because it's actually extremely slow. So it's on, I guess we could say, one sand per cycle, which means that this sand here is the only sand in the system, and the cycle time is the time it takes for this sand to travel all the way from the obsidian platform here, all the way to the overworld, and then all the way back to the end here, to this very platform. And that's the cycle time. So this here takes about 12 ticks to go through all the way into the end portal, and then all the way back to the end portal in the overworld, back to here. And every smart piston adds, what, 1.5 ticks to the cycle time. So the way we can actually optimize this is, basically we want to optimize the amount of cycles, because you see currently this system isn't actually doing a lot while this sand is being transported, right? It's doing absolutely nothing. So what we can actually do is we can actually input another sand block. So if we actually come up here and up to here, we can actually input another sand block. So the sand block is currently here, it comes up, and wait a few, and then we can put another one up, right? And we actually inputted another cycle there. So now two sands, or two cycles are in the system. And you'll actually see that this whole system is suddenly a lot faster. We're actually duplicating more sand here. And ultimately we can get up to 3 cycles with this design. And that's what we actually have in our fully automatic setup.
Indeed, and that is actually controlled by the the switch where you turn on the system. So if we would turn this off, the sand would die off and stop. So basically, when I pull this lever again, that is going to cause a monostable to fire upstairs. Let me go there, show you. Let's see, it's coming from somewhere, but anyways, here it is. This pulses, and that will go into this. Basically, this thing pulses this piston once, then waits 12 ticks, then it pushes it again, then 12 ticks after that, it pushes again. So basically, it fires 3 times, and that creates our 3 cycles. So that would make this setup we have right now the optimized speed. And one thing to mention is that if you want to make your own, you might have to adjust the amount of smart pistons in your setup, because the amount you're gonna have might vary from depending on distances and like how many corners you have. So you might need to add a few or might remove a few if it is possible to make it fully optimized.
Yeah, exactly. And also, I guess we also have to note that it doesn't actually matter if you use multiple multiple smart pistons in the overworld for your sand train. What that will mean is you'll just add more and more cycles to your system. Now, this could make the startup system like extremely complicated with like the requirement of like 20 pulses, but it could still work to full efficiency. But for our design, we wanted to minimize the number of cycles, yet optimize the speed. So that's why we have all the instant sand conveyors in the overworld and all of that sort of stuff.
So currently the system is actually running at full capacity, and we said in the demonstration that the system have a automatic system of detecting when a cycle disappears, and this is exactly what you're looking at. It is using this pulse sustainer with 2 comparators, and this system will always pulse this thing, the cobble generator, and that will actually renew this pulse length, so it always stays on. But if one sand would disappear from this train, this would actually turn off, and this repeater would activating this falling edge trigger. And what this falling edge trigger does is it will actually force this whole thing to shut off again by inverting this torch here, hence turning off this torch here, so it will actually turn off the whole thing and wait this amount of repeaters that goes around and turn it back on, so it will turn on again. And when it turns on again, it will fire the monostable that starts the sequence again, so it will push 3 times. So in essence, you will basically have a resetted system. Yeah.
So yeah, we can just see that in practice just by removing one of the sand blocks up here. So if we do that now, we remove 2, you'll see that this comparator goes off, and then it will actually come off again. But then after this system goes through, the whole system will reset.
Yep, it is full speed again. And that's the thing about that.
Yeah, that's actually a requirement that we found, because sometimes in extremely laggy conditions, the system can actually sort of lag out and stop. It can sort of destroy some of its cycles, so it can remove some of the cycles from 3 to like 2 or 3 to 1, and yeah, we didn't want that. We wanted it to be optimal at all times. So we forced this reset into the system, which basically means that this thing is going to be running at maximal speed at all times.
Indeed. So here we are at the first version we ever had. And this is actually a design the Gunmaster and I did. It's using 0 ticks, as you can see. It looks ridiculously fast. Textures even morph inside each other in the blocks. And the sad part about this design, though, is that it sometimes breaks, and we did not want that, of course. So we redesigned it and did a lot of testing, optimizing, and we came to the conclusion that this was not the way to go, and we actually used Sancarn's first idea of using double extender glitches, and that turned out to be pretty fail-proof because it can't really break. The worst thing that happens is a cycle dies, and that is repairable. However, if a piston pushes out, you can't really repair it without going there manually and doing it, so yeah.
Yeah, and also occasionally with this design, like blocks got pushed into these repeaters and this redstone here, so so it wasn't automatically resettable, which is an unfortunate part of this design.
Indeed.
But still, it's super fast and it works up to an extent. So it was a good starting off design anyway.
Yep.
And also, I guess another slight issue with this was that we needed to do some minecart stickery to collect collect all the sand entities that would fall onto the repeaters and stuff in the corner, because we had to leave that open. Whereas with the other design, we didn't have to do that because there's only one hole in the wall, right? So
yeah.
So that was quite fortunate.
Indeed.
So yeah, that's this. Now there's a couple of notes that we would like to sort of leave you with if you want to make this in your own world. Firstly, be prepared because it's going to take a long time. This took us around. I predicted around 24 hours, and we used MC Edit and a bunch of other stuff to speed up the process. I mean, we did spend a lot of time on this design as well, which didn't help, and you guys will be starting off with our design, which already works, so that's good. Or yeah, or your own design. You might make your own design. Who knows? But yeah, that's the first thing. It's going to take a lot of time and a lot of resources, but you will get infinite sand out of it. So you know, maybe it's worth it. I don't know. You're going to have to make up your mind for yourself. Another thing to say is that you might need to use instant sand conveyors in this world, or in this dimension, as in the end. And you might also need to load the chunks in the end, depending on how far away the end portal is to your end platform. Sometimes it can be far away in the unloaded chunks. So yeah, you might need to load a 5x5 area around your chunk portal, your end portal in the end,
yeah,
to actually be able to let the sand fall. Oh, and I think this is broken as in the middle of this talk here. Yep, You can actually see some of the collateral damage here.
Yeah, the cobblestone pushed in here.
Yep. That's
how it dies.
Yeah, that's how it dies.
Yeah, so that's why we didn't chose this one.
Yeah, indeed. A couple of other things is that apparently, according to Minecraft, breaking this sensor lock here is different to the end platform refreshing and deleting it via code. The redstone mechanics behave a bit weirdly, and sometimes it acts different ways to others.
Actually, that is directly related to the instant monostable we use, I think. Because depending if you power it with a lever, or breaking the block, or having the platform refresh breaking it for you, it will actually create different pulses. And when we're using these glitchy stuff like 0 ticks or double extender glitches, they're gonna react differently to those, and basically we struggled for a long time trying to figure out and what the hell's going on, and apparently it was different with the lever, so that is definitely a thing to keep in mind when doing glitchy stuff like this.
Yeah, it was really messed up. We were like, wait, what? Like, every single time.
Yep.
And the final thing to say is that all designs that we've shown you, and all designs that are presented in the world download and stuff, may not actually work in all the positions or in all directions, because they exploit weird glitches that may be location or direction dependent. So yeah, so basically you might need to actually fully understand the mechanics behind the system before you actually try to do it yourself, because it might bug out in some places and you might need to reorientate things, reposition things to actually get them perfect, maybe even use different designs. So yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Well,
wait, did you just start it again?
Yeah.
Okay, I was gonna say.
Just one cent.
Yeah, fair enough. And that's another thing actually. The cycles seem to, well, they break things, but the design itself can still break independent of the cycles. Like, for example, this one, we had this one running on one cycle for like ages. It was about, what, 10 minutes or so, and eventually it actually broke, just independent of the cycle time. So it's not actually that the cycles are going fast. Yeah. But having said that, also PC lag can have a massive effect on your system breaking. So if you have a really beefy computer, something like this might actually be perfectly fine. Or if you have a beefy computer, another design that you find might be fine, but on just a laptop or something, it might not be because of lag.
Exactly. So yeah.
So yeah, anyway guys, I think that's everything that we actually have to say.
Yep, I think so too.
Okay, well, see you later guys.
Yep, see ya.